A low beam goes out and suddenly your quick 5-minute fix turns into a wrestling match with a rubber cap you can't see, a connector that won't budge, and a bulb that somehow never sits right again. And the annoying part is that the headlight will still turn on after you're done, so you think you nailed it, until you drive at night and the beam is scattered, too high, or dimmer than before. That's why low beam bulb replacement on Suzuki Swift is one of those jobs that looks simple, but punishes you for rushing. The first trap is buying the wrong bulb. People walk into a store, say, Suzuki Swift headlight bulb, and leave with something that fits the socket but isn't the correct low beam, or they mix up high beam and low beam, or they get a bulb that physically locks in but sits at the wrong depth. The car doesn't care about your confidence. It cares about the exact base, the exact tabs, and the exact seating. So before you touch anything, you want to identify what your Swift actually uses. The most reliable method is boring but foolproof: pull the old bulb and read the marking on the base. Not the glass, not the box you found in the trunk, not what a website suggests. The base will usually have a code molded or printed into it. That code is what you match when you buy the replacement. If you haven't bought the bulb yet and you need the car tonight, you can still remove the old one, read it, and reinstall it temporarily while you source the correct part. It's better than guessing and making 2 trips. Now, a quick reality check: Suzuki Swift has multiple generations and trims, and the access can feel different depending on the headlight housing and what's packed around it in the engine bay. Some setups use a spring retaining clip that flips down and locks. Others use a twist lock bulb holder. The good news is you don't need to know the whole history of the model to succeed. You just need to recognize which locking system you have once you're behind the headlight. Before you start, stack the odds in your favor. Turn the lights off, take the key out, and let the headlight cool down. Halogen bulbs get hot enough to burn you and hot enough to make you rush, and rushing is how clips snap. If you have thin gloves, use them, or at least have a clean tissue or paper towel ready for handling the new bulb. The goal is simple: don't touch the glass with bare fingers. Skin oils create hot spots on the glass when the bulb runs, and that can shorten its life dramatically. It might not fail immediately, which is why people think it's a myth, but it's one of the most common reasons a brand new bulb dies early. Open the hood and go to the back of the headlight assembly on the side you're replacing. You're looking for the rear access area, usually around rubber dust cap or a plastic cover. This cap matters more than people think. It keeps moisture and dust out of the housing. Forget it, or seat it badly, and you can end up with fogging inside the headlight, corrosion on the connector, and a bulb that fails again because the environment inside the housing turns nasty. If it's cold outside, be gentle with rubber caps. Cold rubber can feel stiff and can tear if you yank it like you're opening a jar. Work it off gradually, pulling around the edges. If it's a plastic cover, look for tabs and don't pry with a screwdriver unless you absolutely have to. Most of the damage on DIY bulb swaps comes from forcing something that was meant to be turned or unlatched. Once the cap is off, you'll see the back of the bulb and the electrical connector plugged into it. This is where people lose patience, because you're working by feel. Use a flashlight if you can, even if it's just your phone. Look for a locking tab on the connector. Some connectors pull straight off with a firm tug, but many have a small tab you need to press before it releases. If it feels glued on, don't just pull harder. Wiggle it gently while pressing the tab. Years of heat cycles can make the plastic tight, and a little controlled movement beats snapping the connector or pulling on the wires. If the connector is truly stuck, the best move is to change your grip, not your force. Grab the connector body, not the wires. Press the release tab, then rock it side to side in tiny movements while pulling straight back. If there's corrosion or dirt, you might feel it cracked free. If you do see greenish corrosion on the terminals, that's a clue the dust cap wasn't sealing well or moisture got in. You can clean it carefully later, but for now, focus on not breaking anything. With the connector off, you'll deal with the bulb retainer. This is the moment where low beam bulb replacement on Suzuki Swift goes from easy to, why won't this come out? If you see a thin metal wire clip, that's the spring clip style. It usually hooks under a small catch. You press the clip in slightly and move it sideways to unhook it, then it swings down. Don't bend it out of shape. It's designed to hold the bulb at a precise pressure and position. If you distort it, the bulb can sit crooked even if it seems locked. If instead you see a plastic ring or the bulb base itself looks like it should rotate, you likely have a twist lock. In that case, you rotate the bulb or holder a small amount and pull it out. The key is to notice the direction it wants to go. If it doesn't rotate easily, don't force it. Recheck that you're turning the correct part and that nothing is still clipped. Now pull the old bulb straight out. As you remove it, pay attention to its orientation. Most halogen low beam bulbs have tabs that only allow one correct position, but in real life, you can still end up one notch off or not fully seated. Notice where the top is. Notice how deep it sits. If you can, compare the new bulb to the old bulb right away. Same base shape, same tab layout, same connector style. If anything looks different, stop. A bulb that almost fits is how you end up with a beam pattern that blinds oncoming traffic or lights up the treetops instead of the road. When you're ready to install the new bulb, handle it by the base. If you accidentally touch the glass, don't panic, but don't ignore it either. Wipe the glass gently with a clean, dry tissue. If you have proper alcohol wipes, that's even better, but the main point is removing oils. Then let it dry before you power it on. Insert the bulb into the housing in the same orientation as the old one. This is where patience pays off. You want it to sit flush, not almost flush. If it's a spring clip style, hold the bulb in place while you swing the clip back up and latch it. If you let the bulb move while you latch the clip, it can rotate slightly and lock in wrong. With a twist lock, push the bulb in gently and rotate until it stops. You should feel a definite end point, not a mushy kind of tight. That tactile cue matters. A bulb that isn't fully locked can vibrate, flicker, or sit at the wrong focal point, which ruins the cutoff and throws light everywhere. Now reconnect the electrical connector. Push it on until it feels fully seated. If it has a tab, you should feel or hear a small click. Don't smear grease everywhere, but if you have a tiny amount of dielectric grease and the connector look dry or slightly corroded, a very light film on the rubber seal area can help keep moisture out. The terminals themselves should make solid metal-to-metal contact, you're not trying to insulate them. Before you put the dust cap back on, take a second to check your work. Is the bulb sitting straight? Is the retainer fully latched? Is the connector fully on? This is the last easy moment to fix a mistake. Once the cap is on, you'll be tempted to call it done. Now refit the dust cap or cover. Make sure it's seated evenly all the way around. If it's a rubber cap, run your fingers around the edge and feel for any part that's folded or not fully on. That little fold is enough to let moisture in over time. And moisture doesn't just fog the lens, it can also shorten bulb life and cause intermittent electrical issues that are maddening to diagnose later. At this point, you can test the light. Turn the ignition to the appropriate position and switch on the low beams. Don't stare directly into the headlight at close range. Just confirm it illuminates and looks stable, not flickering. If you replaced only one side, you may notice the new bulb looks slightly different in color compared to the old one. That's normal. Old halogens dim and shift as they age. It's one reason many people replace bulbs in pairs, not because the car demands it, but because your eyes do. Mismatched brightness can make night driving feel uneven, and the older bulb often fails soon after the first one because they've lived the same number of heat cycles. If you do decide to replace the other side, expect the access to feel different. One side might be tighter because of the battery, the airbox, or other components. The technique stays the same, but your hand angles change. That's where people get impatient and start pulling on wires or prying on plastic. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Now for the part that saves you from thinking you're done when you're not, a quick beam sanity check. Park the car facing a wall or garage door on level ground at a short distance. Turn on the low beams and look at the pattern. You're not doing a full headlight aiming procedure here. You're just checking that both sides look similar in height and shape, and that one beam isn't wildly higher or more scattered than the other. If the new bulb is seated wrong, you'll often see it immediately, the cutoff will look messy, the hotspot will be in a strange place, or one side will glare upward. If that happens, don't try to aim it out with the headlight adjusters. Pull the bulb back out and reseat it. 9 times out of 10, it's not locked in correctly. If the new bulb doesn't turn on at all, don't assume it's defective right away. Start with the simplest causes. First, the connector, it might not be fully seated. Unplug it and plug it back in firmly. Second, the bulb seating, on some housings, if the bulb isn't locked, the connector can sit at an angle and not make proper contact. Third, confirm you replace the low beam and not another bulb in the housing. It sounds obvious, but in tight spaces it's easy to grab the wrong socket. If it still doesn't work, swap the old bulb back in temporarily. If the old bulb lights, your wiring and fuse are probably fine, and the new bulb may be wrong type or faulty. If neither bulb lights on that side, then you start thinking about power, the fuse, a connector issue, or corrosion. You don't need to dive into a full electrical diagnosis to be smart here. Just recognize the boundary. If both bulbs fail to light and the other headlight works, a fuse or connection is plausible. If both sides are out, it could be a switch, relay, or a shared circuit issue. At that point, it's reasonable to consult the owner's manual for the fuse location and check it, but if you're not comfortable, that's where a shop visit makes sense. If the bulb lights but flickers, that's often a loose connector or a bulb not fully locked. Halogen bulbs generally don't flicker normally. They're either on or off. Flicker is a clue that something is not making solid contact or is vibrating. Reseat the connector, check the retainer, and make sure the dust cap isn't pushing on the connector in a way that stresses it. Yes, that happens. A cap that's not designed to sit over an aftermarket bulb or a connector that's rotated can get pressed, and the vibration of driving turns that into intermittent contact. And if everything works but the beam looks wrong, resist the temptation to live with it. A poorly seated bulb can reduce your visibility and increase glare for others. The fix is almost always mechanical, not electrical. Pull it out, align the tabs, seat it fully, lock it, and recheck the wall pattern. Here's the quiet truth about this job: the replacement part is easy. The hard part is doing it in a cramped space without contaminating the bulb, without breaking the dust seal, and without locking the bulb in slightly wrong. That's why people end up repeating the job 2 or 3 times and blaming the car, the bulb brand, or their luck. If you take one thing away, make it this: confirm the bulb type from the old bulb, handle the new one by the base, and treat correct seating like the whole game. Do that, and low beam bulb replacement on Suzuki Swift becomes exactly what it should be: a straightforward DIY fix that restores your night visibility without creating new problems you didn't have before.